So welcome to the orientation of economy. Now, first of all, as you can see here, economy is not something as important as polity, I would say. As you can see here, close to 11, close to 13, 12, 14 questions come with respect to economics every year. Okay, so that's a total of 10 to 15 questions every year. And if you compare the same, you can see here that these are the most important micro themes which we have already given in the Prelims micro themes document, right? So here, as you can see, RBI functions 36 questions, fiscal policy 31, economic growth 27, banking finance 27, trade. These are the most important micro themes which you have to definitely follow. Okay. Now, what are the sources? Now, could anyone tell me what are the sources that you follow? You can comment in the session. Aniket, Mayung, Nantini, yeah. What are the sources that you mostly follow? Anyone? What are the sources that you follow? Mrinal notes. Okay, fine. Any other? Vivek Singh. Good. NCERTs. Okay. Now that is the issue with respect to economy. Okay. If I have asked the same question in the polity orientation, 99% of the students will say, I follow Lakshmikant only. But in case of economy, let me tell you, there is no single standard source. Okay. So whatever book you are currently following, you can continue to do that. Okay. And let's say you are able to get the PYQs from that, then you keep doing the same. Okay. That's the only thing with respect to sources. Now, as you can see here, you can read one standard book. That's the most important thing. If you have Abhi not followed anything, in my opinion, you can go with Nitin Singhania. Okay. And even Ramesh Singh or even Vivek Singh is something good. Okay. So only one standard book that can be your institute note, Mrinal Sir's classes, Sarthi Shivin Sir's lectures, or the three of the standard books that I have mentioned here. Now, the important question here is NCERTs important? No, NCERTs are not important with respect to economy. Okay. If you have not read or started economy, the NCERTs, you can completely ignore the same, because almost all the questions which have ever UPSC asked, that can be answered from the standard books. Okay. And UPSC does not directly take statements from the NCERTs as well. So it's something you can totally ignore. Okay. So only one of these standard books. And what do you need to do after that? Let's say, for example, in case of polity as well, what did you do? Polity and economy are very conceptual topics, right? So therefore, after reading the standard book, you need to do questions regarding the same. Let's say you completed inflation. It's a very conceptual topic, right? So after that, what you have to do? You can either go for Vivek Singh 450 wala document, or Forum IAS ka bhi ek workbook hai. I will share both of the documents in the group. You need to solve questions from the same. Now, should you do for all the other important micro themes? No. Let's say, for example, RBI initiatives are mostly current affairs. Global treaties are mostly current affairs. Then digitalization of economy is something mostly current affairs. So those part which comes in the current affairs, different types of banks are mostly current affairs. So you don't need to read the whole payment banks and all the other different things that UPSC have already asked. UPSC have never repeated the same. So therefore, you can completely avoid that. But all the topics which are very evergreen, inflation, fiscal, budget, and all the other things, you need to definitely do close to 30, 40 questions from these particular micro themes. Okay? So read the standard book. And after that, what do? You solve close to 30 to 40 questions. And the same thing, if your accuracy is more than 70%, then you can move on to the next chapter. Let's say your accuracy is less than 50% or something. Then you need to revise the book once again. And after that, you can do our daily test. So this should be the plan for economy. Okay. Now, what are the current affairs sources? Now, first of all, only one current affairs material. It can be our Samachar Manthan, it can be PT 365, any one source, followed by the questions which is asked in our test series as well. So these are the most important areas you have to focus on. First of all, let's say any of RBI's initiatives. Let's say in 2025, UPSC have asked about UPI, right? Previously, UPSC have asked about, in 2024, UPSC have asked about the central bank digital currencies. It was asked in 2024. So in all the years, UPSC will ask at least one question with respect to RBI, and mostly it's related to the RBI initiatives. Okay. Now, the second one, it's related to the global trade disputes and treaties. UPSC have asked about BTIA, Broad Investment Trade Treaty. UPSC have asked about the WTO agreements. UPSC have asked about the same. In 2025 there was no treaty questions, but let's say this one, there was a question with respect to ADB and Asian Infrastructure Development Bank, right? That was also a current affairs question, nature some question. So all these international organizations which comes in news, especially also this thing, the IBRD question came. There was a current affairs news with respect to IBRD as well in 2025. That's why UPSC asked the question in 2025. So any external organizations which comes in news, G20 was asked in 2020 for the fact that G20 summit happened in India. And the second thing, changes in taxation policies. For example, any changes in the tax budget or any new initiatives or any significant innovations are set in the economic survey, you need to focus on the same. Okay. The fourth one is the new infrastructure projects. This is something important because in 2024, UPSC asked about how many of the above are greenfield airports. And to spare, Donipolo was something inaugurated in that particular year. So infrastructure projects is something you need to follow. And the Supreme Court judgments. Let's say there has been any major issue with respect to any economic something. For example, in 2022, UPSC asked about multi-state cooperative societies. Now, USPE, the Supreme Court judgment was there with respect to multi-state cooperative societies on that particular year. So always focus on the Supreme Court judgments with respect to economy, new infrastructure projects, the major infrastructure projects, not any rail or something. Let's say a new airport is inaugurated. We will be discussing all these. Okay? So these are the 5 main things which UPSC focuses on in the current affairs. RBI initiatives can be the different banks also introduced by RBI. Okay? So the sources would be, you don't need to do the NCERTs. You can focus on any of the standard book, followed by one annual magazine or monthly magazine, and plus the current affairs information asked in our test series. These are the only things which you need to do. You will be able to get close to 90 to 100. I mean, at least 90% of the questions if you do it. Okay. Yeah. So any doubts, anyone regarding the sources? Shivin Sir's notes. Yeah. Ramesh Singh, Vivek, Nitin Singhania. Anything is fine. I personally prefer Nitin Singhania. If you have not bought the book, then you can go for Nitin Singhania. Okay. Hello.
Yeah. Can I ask?
Uday, you can ask the doubts after we complete the session. Okay.
Regarding the sources.
Yeah, the same thing, because it is going to be
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, all of you could you actually mute yourself. Yeah, okay, good. Now regarding this is the most important thing. Okay, let's go into each and every micro theme. RBI and the monetary policies of RBI is the most important thing. Okay, let's say I would say RBI is the most important thing. Now, how many questions have come in RBI? Close to 17 questions have been asked by RBI in the last 15 years. As you can see here, RBI sterilization policy has been asked in 2023. The central banks and the RBI's monetary policies, as you can see here. Again, a question with respect to monetary policies, inflation and monetary policy, cash reserve ratio, money multiplier, expansionary monetary policies with respect to RBI, slide of Indian rupee, exchange rate. These are the different monetary policy questions, as you can see here. And also, you can see the different instruments also used by RBI, right? Bank rate, open market operations, repo rate, reverse repo rate. So you need to have a clear-cut idea with respect to the same. Okay. As you can see here, statutory liquidity ratio, statutory requirements. These are all some of the instruments used by RBI in order to control the inflation. Okay. Money supply, bank rate. Which of the following measures would result in the increase in money supply? Again, with respect to money supply in the economy. Again, a question with respect to money multiplier. So what are the areas to focus? First of all the RBI instruments, open market operations, selling of government securities, buying of government securities, bank rate, repo rate, reverse repo rate, and how would they impact the inflation, or how would they lead to increase or decrease in the money supply? So basically, you have to read about the expansionary policies and the contractionary policies of RBI. And after that, you need to focus on the money multiplier. Let's say RBI does a particular thing, then how will it lead to the money multiplier? Will it reduce the money supply or would it increase the money supply? These are the areas that you need to focus with respect to RBI in terms of its monetary policy. Okay. Second one, also the same process, because this is the most important topic. You need to do significant number of questions from these 2 documents. Okay. After that, you can take our test series. Now, second one, RBI's other functions is also very important. As you can see here, in 2025, UPSC asked about what are the other sources of income of Reserve Bank of India, right? And in the right-hand side, you can see here the formation or the composition of RBI. Other functions such as RBIs act as the banker's bank, lender of last resort, almost the same thing. Lender of last resort and the banker's bank is almost the same. And here, RBI, how they restrict the foreign banks as well. Okay. So it's not only that you have to focus on only the monetary policies, the money supply, how RBI influences policies. Rather, you have to focus on the RBI's other functions as well. Lender of last resort, banker's bank, how they print the currencies, and all the other different functions taken by RBI. Okay. So RBI is something you need to dive very deeper. Okay, so whatever information you get with respect to RBI, you can read for the fact that this is the most important theme in economy. Okay, and the third important thing are the RBI's initiatives. So in 2025 as well, you can see this here question. The Reserve Bank of India mandates all listed companies in India to submit a business responsibility and sustainability report. So this was also in news in 2025. That's why this question came. In 2024 as well, you can see a digital rupee question was asked, which was introduced by RBI. Storage of payment system or the diktat was asked in 2019. 2023, again a question with respect to digital currencies, which was introduced by RBI, or RBI was going to introduce the same. 2018, capital adequacy ratio was introduced by RBI. Marginal cost of funding, these are all the RBI instruments, but you can say that these are also introduced by RBIs. In 2025 as well, the question regarding UPI was also asked. This is also, we can say, or even though it's an initiative by NPCI, RBI provides all the regulatory guidelines regarding the same. So we can take it under RBI as well. Okay. So all the initiatives introduced by RBI, digital rupee, UPI, business responsibility, sustainability report, everything you can read. Now, should you read the RBI's annual report or something to get these informations? No. If it's something very significant, then it will be there in the current affairs. Okay. The business responsibility and sustainability report was there in the current affairs. I remember reading the same. Digital rupee was there in the current affairs. Digital currencies was already there in the current affairs. So everything, if it's something very important, it will obviously be there in the current affairs. So therefore, you don't have to waste time reading RBI's annual report or something. Okay. So what are the 3 areas to focus? First of all, regarding the formation of RBI, regarding the RBI's monetary policy committees, the RBI's initiatives, especially focus on the new initiatives. So we don't have to read all the previous initiatives from probably 2023 to 2020, 2015 or something. Only focus on the new initiatives because most of the questions are only based on current affairs. UPA was asked because all these different countries, Singapore, France, UAE, signed the UPA agreement, right? That's the reason why this question was asked. So mostly focus on the current affairs with respect to the new initiatives. Other than that, the Monetary Policy Committee, you have to dive very deep. RBIs, as we discussed before, the other functions of RBI, and how RBI controls the money supply in the economy. These are the significant amount of areas you need to focus with respect to Reserve Bank of India. Okay, everyone? Any doubts? Any doubts, anyone, with respect to Reserve Bank? Okay, good. Now, moving on to the next one. Fiscal policy and budget, let me tell the same. This is also something you require significant clarity, right? So the monetary policies are the policies taken by the RBI, whereas the fiscal policies are those taken by the government of India. And the budget, and mostly the government, how does government control the money supply in the economy? Through its fiscal policies and the budget, right? So budget is also something very important. So 19 questions have been asked in the last 15 years with respect to the fiscal policy and budget. Okay. So as you can see here in 2025, and some of you might have felt it has a CSAT paper. This is also something very important. Okay. This is, I would say, one of UPSC's favorite area with respect to calculation of fiscal deficit and deficit financing. As you can see here, in 2025, 2 questions came with respect to fiscal deficit. Now, both the questions asked about the calculation of fiscal deficit only. Deficit financing is also very important. As you can see here, 2011 UPSC asked about the deficit financing. 2011, again, a question with respect to fiscal stimulus. 2016 again, a question with respect to fiscal deficit financing. 2015 B, a question with respect to deficit financing or persistent budget deficit. So this is the most important area. Okay? Deficit financing is the most important area with respect to fiscal policies. So you'll have to understand how the government financed the deficit in India, what happens if the government, what happens if if there is significant deficit financing, and how does the government overcome the same. You have to read about the financial responsibility, I mean the FRBM Act. You have to read through, you have to know how the government increases the taxes and what happens in the economy. You have to know about the privatizations happening, because these are done basically to finance the deficit. So all the areas with respect to deficit financing is something you have to definitely focus on, because this is close to 7 to 8 questions have been asked with respect to deficit financing, right? Now, the second one regarding the budget, it's basically the identification of capital and revenue receipts and liabilities. Okay, capital revenue receipts and not liabilities, but the expenditures. So you can see here in 2025, UPSC asked about capital receipts created liability, borrowings and disinvestment are capital receipts. Again, in 2022 as well, UPSC tested our knowledge with respect to, are we able to identify whether it's a revenue expenditure or are we able to identify whether it's a capital expenditure? Okay. So identification of capital and revenue expenditures and receipts is something very important. You need to have clear-cut clarity. Okay. You can take a significant number of questions from Vivek Singh to test yourself. Again here, in 2014, with reference to union budget, which of the following are non-planned expenditures? Again, 2016, how many of the above are included in the capital budget, not the revenue budget, but the capital budget? Again, UPSC is testing whether you have, whether you are able to identify the capital and revenue budget. The same thing as well, which of the following constitutes the, no, sorry, this is with respect to, sorry, this wouldn't come. This is the current account and capital account, sorry. This is not part of a budget. Okay. Now, regarding the fiscal policies as well, it's something not as important when compared to monetary policies, because hardly 2 questions came, but something you have to focus on. Okay, how the government of India also controls the inflation in the economy. And as I said before, regarding the budget as well. So here you can see 2 questions along with the budget. The finance minister also submits which of the document. And in 2018, a question with respect to FRBM Act already came, because this is the same topic with respect to deficit financing. Okay. Now, the important question will be, should you read the whole economic survey? Now, economic survey is a very big book, right? There are 2 volumes, and both the volumes have close to 300 to 400 pages. So it's an 800-page document. Now, should you read the whole? Definitely no. Okay, for the fact that itna sare questions nahi aate hai economic survey pe. Now, what do you need to do? You need to read summary of the same. Okay, so obviously with respect to economic survey, we have an exam. We have an exam on economic survey and budget. It's a 50 questions exam on the second Friday of economy. So the economic survey will come on the January 31st, and the budget is going to be presented on the 1st of February. So you just need to read a summary regarding the same. Okay. So usually all the academies here, be it Vision IAS, all the different academies here publishes the summary of the same. You need to only read that, and you need to read the summary and attempt our test. Okay, we will be asking only the most important questions with respect to economic survey. We won't be asking any random questions. So the information from our test cities and the information from any summary is only important. Also, we have 2 classes with respect to economic survey and budget. In the 40 hours of revision classes, 4 hours is spent for economic survey and budget. So you don't have to rely on elsewhere. The summary plus our test cities plus our classes will definitely suffice. Okay. Now, what do you need to focus on economic survey? First of all, you need to have a general idea regarding the Indian economy. Okay. Let's say, what is the tax to GDP ratio? What is the tax to external debt to GDP ratio? What is the debt to GDP ratio? All this information you need to have. Okay. How are the savings in India? Is the savings mostly in land? Is the savings mostly in gold? Is the savings mostly in capital market? So all these different informations regarding the Indian society we need to have. Let's say how many percentage of road is national highway, how many percentage of goods is transported by road, by rail, by cargo. So all this information which you have studied in mains, right? Already you have studied about infrastructure and all these things in mains. This will help you here. Okay. So you need to have an overall idea regarding the Indian economy, regarding the debt, regarding savings, investment, all the different sectors, in which position India is in telecom sector, in which position India is in the overall rail network, airline network, all these different informations. You need to basically, I would say, you need to have a very broad idea with respect to the Indian economy regarding all these sectors. Okay. So here you can see 2019 pay. Most of India's external debt is owed by government entities. No, it's basically by private enterprises. All of India's external debt is denominated in US dollars. Definitely all is an extreme word, right? So in the left-hand side, right-hand side, you can see a question with respect to the share of household savings is toward government securities. Obviously, it will be there. Also, we need to have an idea regarding the Indian economy. Okay. What are the different phases of Indian economy? The first few phases we call it as the Hindu rate of growth, right? After that, in 1991, we opened up the economy, and then we had the liberalization, privatization, globalization. So all this, the history of Indian economy is also something that I would suggest you to read. What are the different industrial policies? So we had an industrial policy in 1948. We had an industrial policy in 1969 or 1968 or something. Then we had a policy in 1980. We had one industrial policy. Then we had a policy in 1991. So all these different industrial policies, what was introduced, when was the MRTP Act introduced, when was the FEMA Act introduced, FERA Act introduced, all these things you need to have a history of Indian economy as well. Okay. So what are the important areas to focus? First of all, fiscal deficit and the deficit financing, most important. The technicals of budget, basically the identification of capital, revenue receipts and expenses. Fiscal policies, economic survey, a general understanding regarding the budget. We will have a class. You don't need to, this is not something headache. You should never think 600 pages is there, 700 pages is there. Itna to nahi hai. UPSC hardly ask any questions. And if you have an overall idea with respect to already you have studied the economic development from range, you will be able to solve the questions. Okay. Now, planning and growth is something very important. But let me tell you, let's see if you look at the questions. You can see in 2019, there was a question with respect to the 5-year plans, right? But all the other questions with respect to 5-year plans, let's say in 2014, you have one question. 2014, you have one question. 2009 pay, you have two questions. And 2010 pay question, 2020 10 pay, another question. So close to 8 questions was asked by UPSC, 7 questions was asked by UPSC. But what do you understand? Apart from the 2019 question, all of the 5-year plans came before 2014. Now, what is the reason for the same? Why does UPSC does not ask about the 5-year plans anymore? Anyone? What is the reason? It's a very basic question. What is the reason? For the fact that we don't have 5-year plans, right? In 2014, the NITI basically replaced the planning commission. After that, we did not have 5-year plans. We had a total of 12 5-year plans. Now, should you completely skip the same? No, definitely not. The first 5-year plan and the second 5-year plan, this is something very important. Okay, so the first 5, the Harrod-Domer model and the Mahalanobis model, you need to really go through first and second. After the second 5-year plan, you need to have a very general understanding regarding, let's say in 2019 question, UPSC have introduced an extreme word here. So you can see here, okay, so this was a 3-statement question and UPSC had introduced an extreme word. For the first time, finance was introduced as a question, and that was something very extreme. So if you had eliminated that statement, you would have got the answer in 2019. So always understand, if something very important came in any of the 5-year plan, or was there any significant shift in the plannings, then you can focus on the rest of the plans. Okay. So 1 and 2 dive very deeper, but with respect to 3 to 12, have a very basic general understanding. If any something significant new was introduced, you can follow the same. And although the time period is something you can focus on, because when the Morarji Desai came from 78 to 80, we had 2 rolling plans. And when the Pakistan war also came, we had 2 rolling plans. So remember the time period. So the 5-year plans, this is from this year to this year. Not something very specific, but you need to know about the 2 disruptions in the 5-year plans. Only that you need to know. And the rest, apart from that, you need to have a very general understanding. Because as you can see the question here as well, in 2014 or 2019, not something very deep, I would say. Very general questions is something that UPSC asking here. Okay. So just go through the following and have a basic idea. Okay. Now, the most important regarding banking and finance, 19 questions asked in 15 years. First of all, it's something very hard to predict what UPSC will ask in banking and finance. Okay. The first one is the different concepts, terms, or the tools with respect to banking. As you can see here, in 2025, we had the RTGS and NEFT. It was actually a very, it was a sort of difficult question. Okay. You can see here, with respect to loans, syndicate banking, interest coverage ratio, banks board bureau, you can ignore the same. These are current affairs information. Okay. UPSC won't ask banks board bureau again, once again. These are current affairs questions, intercredit agreement, scheme for stress restructuring of stress tests. These are not evergreen topics. You can completely ignore these topics. So what I'm saying is current affairs informations will come with respect to the different banking initiatives or the banking tools. Capital adequacy ratio, MCLR, merchant discount rate, the banks, whether it comes in the assets or liabilities, answer was deposits. Reserve Bank of India treating foreign banks, capital infusion into banks, core banking solution, Basel Accord, teaser loans, priority sector lending, marginal facility rate, net demand time liabilities, banking ombudsman. So this is what I want to say. It's very hard to predict what UPSC will ask in banking. Okay, so you need to have a clear-cut idea with respect to what are the priority sector lending. 40% priority lending pay hogi, is pay 18% will go to agriculture, and the rest all the loans will go to all the different sectors. So all the sectors under priority lending, what is a banking ombudsman, what is core banking solutions, all these information that you can get from different bankings, RTGS kya hai, NEFT kya hai, NPCI kya hai, UPI kya hai. Baki sab you have to study. Okay. It's very hard to predict what UPSC will ask in 2026. Different types of banking, let me tell you, this is mostly current affairs questions. So you don't have to study what was payment banks and everything. So here, NBFCs is something you have to study. Okay. Urban cooperative banks, as I told you, a Supreme Court judgment was there. That is why this question was asked. DCC banks, small finance banks, asked in 2017. Payment banks, the idea came in 2015, 2016. That is why this question was asked. But two questions came with respect to NBFCs. So NBFC something is a very evergreen topic. It's not related to current affairs. NBFCs, you can dive very deeper. But payment banks, small finance banks, I don't think UPSC will ask once again, because these were current affairs information and now they are not significant. Okay, so different types of banks, especially the NBFCs, types of banking, the deposits, loans, different types of loans, teaser loans, syndicate loans, UPSC asked in 2024 as well. Instruments in banking, MCLR, priority sector lending, all the other things. And the terms in use, because the merchant discount rate, UPSC asked with respect to demonetization, everyone was using then the point of sale machine. So at that time, merchant discount rate was something very important. So all these different terms in use that you hear with respect to banking, you can make a note regarding the same. Now, with respect to trade, very hard to predict what UPSC will ask with respect to trade. Okay. So in 2024, UPSC have already asked about Venezuela, or else we could have said that, okay, fine, Venezuela might come. UPSC in 2024 have, for no reason, asked about India does not import apples. Maybe at least one apple India will import, right? So obviously the first statement is incorrect here. UPSC have asked about India's accounts for 3.2% of global exports, the overall. Now, what did UPSC do here? Now, in my logical elimination session, I have discussed a strategy, discussed a technique called, how does UPSC change the data? UPSC does it in two ways, right? The one is that UPSC will add a zero, right? So the 100 billion in Paris Agreement, UPSC changed it to 1,000 billions. National Infrastructure Investment Fund was 40,000 crores. And UPSC changed it to 4 lakh crores. So this is one thing that UPSC do, add or decrease zeros. The other thing is UPSC double the same. So India accounts for only 1.6% of global export. Now, Abhi UPSC have doubled it to 3.2. Only 18% of India's districts are water stressed. UPSC in 2020 doubled it to 36%. So always remember these things. Okay? Whenever any database question comes, try to divide it by 2, multiply it by 2. Is there an addition of zeros? ऐसे ही सोचना है. We should not think, right, no, it's not 3.2, it's 2. No, UPSC won't do that. UPSC will double, add a zero, ऐसे ही करेगा. ठीक है. Again, for no reason, a question regarding Switzerland. Okay, it's very hard to predict. TRIMS was asked. India's merchandise exports was asked. India and Sri Lanka trade was asked. India and import of domestic Palm oil was asked. Balance of payments, 2 questions was asked. Now, what are the areas of this? This is what you have to note down. Okay. First of all, India's trade with the world. कितना percent हम trade कर रहे हैं? Service पे, merchandise पे, and overall पे. What are the top 5 export commodities of India? Be it the agriculture commodities and the non-agricultural commodities, you need to note down. What are the top 5 importing agriculture commodities and the non-agriculture commodities in terms of value? Now, with respect to countries as well, which is our top 5 exporters, which is our top 5 importers, and with which countries we have the most number of balance of payment, deficit, or surplus. This you have to note down. Okay? This is the only thing which you need to know with respect to the global trade. And one more thing you need to know is regarding the different global disputes. So BTIA was asked, agreement of, this thing, the psychosanitary measures was asked. There was one more question, I don't remember the same, coffee club or something, UPSC was asked. So all these informations are related to the current affairs. I mean, the global disputes, treaties, BTIA, and everything here. Okay, trademark, import cover, these are all the global disputes and global issues. Okay, so global trade treaties, something very important, disputes between countries and WTO. On what issues India has a dispute with WTO. These are the informations you have to focus on. Okay. So any doubts, anyone? NITI Aayog, Planning Commission discontinued. Good. Definitely, or the PDF will be provided. Now, with respect to capital market. Now, the only thing predictable in capital market is the bonds. Okay. Money market pay, nothing is predictable. Okay. But capital market pay, we will definitely be sure that UPSC will ask at least one question with respect to bond. Okay. So in 2025, 2 questions were there with respect to bond. You can see here, bondholders and the alternative investment fund. 2024 pay, 2 questions were there with respect to bonds. 2022 pay, 2 questions were there with respect to bonds. 2021 pay, 1 question. 2016 pay, sovereign gold bond question. 2015 pay, again, inflation index bonds. So bond is the most important topic. You can treat it as RBI bond as well. All the information, okay. So the first one related to the bonds and inflation. What happens when the bond yield goes down? What happened to the inflation? What happens when the government increases the interest rate? Then what happens to the bond and how does it affect the inflation? This is a topic which is very confusing. So you can watch YouTube videos with respect to saying what happened, what is the relation between the bond yield and the interest rate? What is the relation between bond yield and inflation? All these times, and the different types of bonds, sovereign gold bond, inflation index bonds. And in 2025, UPSC asked about convertible bonds, inflation index bonds, corporate bonds, bond holders. So bond is a very important topic. Dive very deeper with respect to bonds. Okay. Apart from that, I would say capital market and money market instruments are UPSC's favorite areas. Now, what are the instruments of money market? You have treasury bills, you have certificate of deposit, you have commercial deposit, you have then fixed deposits, you have what are the other instruments? Participatory, participatory, that is capital market. So what are the other? Call money, yeah, participatory note, yeah, all these different things. So both the instruments of money market and capital market, you need to have a clear-cut idea. So as you can see here, collateral borrowing and lending obligations is a part of money market. ETF, financial instruments, how many of the above are capital market instruments? In 2023, UPSC asked. Beta was asked in 2023. 2022 question was a current affairs question. Okay, you don't need to read that. Retail investors, treasury bills, Government of India debt bonds, CDSL, short-term capital requirements, certificate of deposit, commercial paper, promissory note, participatory note. The same question, call money, zero coupon bonds. So dive very deep with respect to all the money market instruments and the capital market instruments as well. Now, bond is a capital market instrument, but for some reason, UPSC is significantly asking question from the bond as well. Terms as well, take care. What is a bull? What does a bull represent? What does a bear represent? What does beta represent? All this information you need to know. And in 2025, even though this was a very simple question, there is no regulatory body. Of course, SEBI is there, right? SEBI is a regulatory body with respect to capital market. So therefore, if you eliminated 3, then you would have directly got the answer as 1 and 2 only. Okay. So the money market instruments, capital market instruments, all the terms which you find in the standard books. And apart from that, bond is something where you need to focus the different types of bonds and the relation between bonds and different things. Now, regarding direct and indirect taxes, now in 2025, UPSC have asked a question regarding the income from allied agricultural activities. Now, I would say this was something which you could have solved logically only, right? Because in India, income from allied agricultural activities like pottery is exempted from any tax. Now, if UPSC wanted to make it a very general statement, UPSC could have said that is exempted from tax. Now, why any tax? Any something very extreme, right? So let's say in Tamil Nadu, Namakkal and all, we have 100 crore turnover wala poultry farming and all. I mean, Kerala pay all the chicken come from Tamil Nadu. So maybe small farmers is fine. But what about all these very big capitalist farmers out there? They will obviously have to pay some kind of tax, right? So can you say that it's completely exempted from any tax? No. So it was a very logical question. And in 2018 pay, UPSC asked a question with respect to GST. But just understand that manufactured goods, agriculture goods will come under GST, which includes packing and everything. So therefore, fish processed and canned will definitely come under GST. Newspapers by GST is exempted. So if you eliminate 4, then you can directly go with 2 and 3 only. Because chicken eggs cooked, they are served in the restaurants, right? So in restaurants, they attract GST. So therefore, 2 and 3 will be the answer here. This was something very important. So in 2018, the budget introduced a 6th equalization levy on online advertisement services. It was introduced in the 2018 budget. That is why in UPSC asked a question in 2018. So this was related to budget, the changes of government policies in the budget. 2017 pay, again a question with respect to GST. Then the sales tax, the highest, this is also important, the highest amount that government gets from which of the following taxes? Is it corporate tax? Is it personal income tax? Is it GST? All these data you need to have. Okay. वो तो economic survey पे आपको मिलेगा. So what is it? First of all, what are the different types of taxes? Direct, indirect, income tax, and the GSTs. Recent government policy changes, what is introduced in the budget or any other recent amendments. GST council is something very important. And also GST might UPSC asked, okay, because government has completely overhauled the GST system. Abhi we have only the 18% and also the 5%. So only the 2 rates are there. Abhi. So UPSC can ask a question with respect to GST. Okay. And in this tax composition, what is the largest tax share from the direct sources and also the indirect sources? You need to have clarity. Now, infrastructure pay, as I have told you before, Doni Polo was asked because Kushinagar Airport also was asked because they were inaugurated in that particular year. That's why that question came, current affairs pay. Kamaraj and Mundra and Visakhapatnam port, you can count this in human geography as well. The infrastructure, it can come under human geography as well, but I have included it under economy. Same comes in Indian geography also, human geography also. So all the major ports you have to focus. This was a statement which directly came from the NCERT. The 23rd question you can see here, it was directly taken from the 12th standard NCERT. Then again, we have the Gujarat has the largest solar power plant. Kerala has the first fully solar powered airport and all these topics. Recently, the government initiatives, which of the following state has explored the possibility of constructing an artificial inland port? It was something logically possible as well, but FRBM, it was a current affairs question. Recently, in this first national investment and manufacturing zone, it was in Andhra Pradesh. 2009 as well, UPSC asked about the major and minor ports, non-major ports. Okay. So what are the areas to focus? Port is something important. You need to have a clarity regarding all the 12 major ports and the minor ports which are there. Infrastructure projects in news. Let's say, for example, Abhi the Vande Bharat sleeper train came, right? You can focus on it. UPSC have never asked very specific with respect to any trains or something, but we never know. because in 2025 UPSC asked about the coverage system under National Train Plan. So maybe UPSC can also ask about the train as well. So any new airport is inaugurated, any new dam is inaugurated, any new nuclear power plant or any huge hydro power plant or wind power plant is inaugurated, you need to have a clarity, and also have a clarity regarding which are the major projects in India. What are the major solar power plants in India? You have one in Tamil Nadu, you have Badla, you have a very big one in Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan. All the major solar power projects, wind powers, all the nuclear power plants, thermal, it's not possible for us to study everything. But Neyveli in Tamil Nadu is something very famous for the fact that it uses lignite and the rivers are completely polluted out there. And any new very big hydro power project plants are inaugurated. You can focus on that. Other than that, airport, any very huge railway stations. For example, Gandhinagar railway station is something that I expected for the fact that it was a privately built. Bihar or Jharkhand, they have recently inaugurated a private railway station, not completely private. It was a PPP model railway stations. So all these major infrastructure projects, Chenab Bridge, maybe UPC can ask. All these things you have to focus, which comes in current affairs. Now, with respect to national income accounting, indirect transfers was asked in 2022. Purchasing power parity, UPSC asked about whether India is the third largest economy with respect, sixth largest economy with respect to PPP. GNP, how to calculate the same. GDP ratio, the national income of a country is equal. The real growth of domestic production has steadily increased. The gross domestic has steadily decreased. So all these steadily evolved statements. Again, two questions in 2011 and 2010. So not very significant abhi, but फिर भी है ना very important. ठीक है. So different indicators. Abhi our first exam, you will mostly find questions from these. What comes in GDP? What comes in national income? All these very conceptual questions. It's a beautiful question paper. Different indicators: GDP, GNP, NNP, NNPFC, NNP, MP. How do we get NNP, NP from NNPFC? All this you need to have a clear-cut clarity. Calculations of GDP in different methods: expenditure method, production method, all these different methods. GDP deflator, how do you calculate the same? GDP ranking is very important. Abhi recently, India became the fourth largest GDP country, right? India have overtaken Japan. Abhi we only have Germany and which are the two countries? Sorry, India has overtaken which country? Is it Germany or Japan? Japan, India have overtaken, right? India has become, yeah, which was the country? Okay, India has overtaken Japan, yeah. So India has become the third. So Abhi only Germany, China, and USA is remaining. But in case of purchasing power parity, India has only two countries in front of it. It's basically USA and China. It's the third largest in terms of PPP. And the percentage of GDP growth also. I just need to understand that. Was there any significant steadily increased? Has India's GDP steadily increased from 2020? All these different things. You can use the logic to get the same. So different indicators, components, calculations. These are the informations you need to follow. Yeah. Any doubts? Third, Germany. Yeah. Third is Germany. Now, this is something very hard. Exchange rate, currency, something very hard. For the fact that near, rear, something, for most of the students, it's actually very hard to understand. But since UPSC asked in 2023, you can dive very deeper. Okay. So here, sorry, 2022, need, rear. Other than that, you just need to have a very basic idea. What will happen to the currency inflation in case of capital flight? What will happen to the currency? Or let's say we devalue the currency. And then what will happen to our exports? So here, 2021 UPSC asked about what will happen. Necessarily is an extreme word, but for the effect of devaluation of currency, UPSC have asked. The price of any currency in international market is decided by. So all these questions UP have asked. Near and rear is something you can focus. Other than that, what are the factors that influence the currency? BRICS is going to come up with a new currency. So Trump is against the same. So you can focus on that as well. Okay. Inflation, another very important topic in India. Which of the following is responsible for maintaining, controlling inflation? Mostly the questions are related to what does the government do? What happens when the inflation is there? Then what will the government do? What happens if there is deflation? Then what will the government do? Very basic idea you need to have with respect to the monetary policy and fiscal policy with respect to deflation or inflation. So inflation benefits the debtors, inflation debt with the bondholders. Generally, rise in general prices may be caused by which of the following is appropriate with respect to deflation and all these questions. Okay. Something very easy. Just have to know how inflation happens, what happens after inflation, how does it benefit the bondholders, what happens to the debtors, creditors, what is the relation with them, what happens to the interest rate, what happens to the government bond yield in case of inflation, and basically what does RBI and government do in order to stop the same, be it inflation or deflation, deficit financing, fiscal stimulus, and all these different things. Now, investment pay, let me tell you, investment is also something very hard to predict. The only micro thing we have is foreign direct investment. Okay, so here, as you can see here, 2023 pay, UPSC asked about the InBITS, Infrastructure Investment Trust. And in 2017, UPSC asked about the National Infrastructure Investment Fund. This was something that I told. It was 40,000 crores, UPSC changed it to 4 lakh crores. So UPSC have added a zero here. Other than that, FDI is UPSC's favorite area. So you can see here, 2021, this was in 2019, the other question as you can see here. Foreign direct investments, again, 2 questions with respect to 2012 and 2011. So what do you need to know? You just need to have a clear-cut clarity on what will constitute FDI or not. Let's say, for example, if a company buys only 10%, 5% share of a company, then it's not FDI, it's basically FII. But if the company buys close to more than 10% of a company in India, then it will constitute FDI. So you just have to understand what constitutes FDI and what constitutes FII. Okay. Index also, I would say, is something important. 2020 pay, Consumer Price Index. 2015 pay, Index of Core Industries. 2015 pay, again, Consumer Price Index. 2012 pay, again, Index of 8 Core Industries. So Index of 8 Core Industries pay 2 questions. And in case of Consumer Price Index as well, 2 questions was asked. So what do you need to study? Major indices. Now, what are the indices? CPI, WPI, Index of 8 Industries, Index of Core Industries, producer index. Then all these different indices are there. And what do you need to know about the same? Obviously, who releases the same? What are the components under it? What is a weightage? Let's say Index of 8 Core Industries pay, which has the most weightage and which has the least weightage. In case of CPI, which has the most weightage and which has the least weightage. So all these things you need to know. Okay. So these are the informations that you need to know with respect to economy.